What's up, everyone? We're back for the Million Maker Roundtable show. Just me and Drew this week. Rubio's out, so me and Drew are going to hold the fort down here. Fun slate this week, it looks like. We've got 6 early games, 5 afternoon games, so a really good spread. Really good playability in both the main slate and the afternoon slate, and in the early-only slate there as well. And then over on FanDuel, they got a good Sunday night game as well. Big weekend here this week as well. So we've got the DraftKings Live Final, and then over on FanDuel is the Fan Championship. We've got a couple seats over there in that. Drew, what's going on, man? You looking forward to this weekend? It's also best ball, first round of the best ball playoffs as well. What's going on, man?
Yeah, that's what I'm sweating. I'll probably play the Fan Championship on FanDuel. Was not fortunate enough to play in the DraftKings Live Final, but good luck to everybody that's playing in that. But the best ball sweats are pretty fun, especially this late in the season. So, like I was telling you before the show started, I'm pretty heavy on 2 stacks at Cincinnati and Seattle. So, I mean, that's basically – it's almost better than DFS in a sense because, like, I can't control anything. I don't have exposure spread out. Like, literally, I'm just focused on 2 games. Yeah. So, pretty fun way to sweat. Hopefully, it lasts more than this weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially, honestly, the Rams game dudded so bad. I'm curious to see how that shakes out. I had some Nakua, but that was pretty much it. So I don't know how that works out. I'm not sure they were studs throughout the season. But, yeah, games like that are always going to throw like a kink into things.
Yeah, for sure. Cooper Kupp getting the old goose eggs definitely going to tilt some people out there in the best ball streets. But we can jump into things here, try and knock this out in an hour or so, and let everyone get on with their Saturday night. Let's start off here with the Ravens and the Giants here. We've got a total in this game right around 42-43. The spread has ballooned all the way up to 16.5, 17 in some spots here. We've got the Ravens coming off the bye week and pretty much a smash spot here against the lonely Giants, who have looked to have pretty much given up on the season here. What are you seeing in this game here, Drew? Derrick Henry is in a prime spot to potentially just really erupt here. And kind of relatively a little lower ownership. You'll see some, but not a ton, I don't think.
Yeah, you threw me off. Rubio goes down the SaberSim schedule. So I was searching. I was trying to find Baltimore real quick. I'm good to go. Honestly, Baltimore is a pretty strong total in this slate. So it's hard to ignore this. It's a little bit tough to squeeze in full stacks, but I'm definitely looking at Zay Flowers at $6K. I think he's pretty cheap enough as a wide receiver 1 on this team. And then, like you said, Derrick Henry at 8,300, obviously with a really strong projection at a 30-point total. That's probably the majority of my exposures in this game. I think there's some avenues where it's going to be super low owned, so you might as well stack up. If they're going to be chasing, which they should be the entire game, if you're going to play a handful of lineups, playing some Jets or some Giant stacks is not the worst thing in the world. So like Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Tommy DeVito isn't exactly dead in terms of like the Millie Maker. So I think majority of my exposure will be wrapped around Derrick Henry and some one-offs with Zay Flowers, but wouldn't be afraid. Like if we're going to talk about some really low-owned stacks, not necessarily can go off, but just like the game script, they're going to be behind. They should be behind from the 10 minutes into the game, 5 minutes into the game. The Giant stacks aren't the worst thing in the world. They're very cheap. They can make you do a lot of things on the slate.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of looking at a few pieces from the Ravens side here. They've got a team total implied at right around 30 points, so definitely going to score some points here. Just got to find out where they come from. And I think this could be one of those spots like they played the Broncos earlier. They were a pretty big favorite in that game and beat them 41-10. So I think it could be kind of one of those situations. I'm definitely going to have some Henry and then correlate it with the Ravens defense. The Ravens defense are priced at 3,900. They haven't been good this year, but I think this is one of those spots that they can get to the quarterback here and force DeVito into some mistakes and such here. So I'm pretty high on Derrick Henry on both slates. He did cut the dreads off, so we'll have to see how that goes. Maybe that helps him improve maybe 1 mile an hour or something like that. Speeds him up.
Or it takes his strength away, like Samson. Maybe it takes his strength away.
Yeah, I know. I'm worried about that too. It's been
you remember Trent Richardson?
Yeah.
From Bama? And he played in the NFL for a short period of time, but that was the same deal, dude. He had what the heck was that stupid alien movie? Predator. He had Predator locks going.
Yeah.
And that was like his power.
Yeah. It's been a couple weeks since Henry hasn't found the end zone, but he's like incredibly high. I think I've seen he was like minus 300 or something to score a touchdown in this game. So should see him back
safe.
in the box.
Yeah, pretty safe.
I've got a cheapie here though. I kind of like Daniel Bellinger as a cheap tight end punt here. A lot of people are going to be going to the other two cheapies that we'll get into, but Bellinger last week played 61 snaps after Theo Johnson went out. He had 7 targets, caught 5 balls for 45 yards. I think Bellinger could be a sneaky guy because they're going to be behind here and throwing off, and I think he could be a safety valve for DeVito. So I've got a decent amount of conviction on Bellinger as like a cheapie for the Millie Maker and such. I know a lot of people are going to go like the Stone Smart and then the guy out of Jacksonville that we'll get into later. But do you have any thoughts on Bellinger here at 2,800?
He's fine. I think the script goes a little bit different. Like obviously they're gonna be throwing it a lot. I just feel like that's gonna be heading towards Wan'Dale Robinson a bit more and Malik Neighbors. So I mean they can't really work the clock. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously he's super cheap, so it can work out. Honestly, I think that would just go back to playing some giant stacks. Like if you want to play a one-off, maybe that can work. But I think if he goes off, there might be an opportunity for you to stack up the Giants. Yeah,
for sure. That'll do us for this game. Let's go to Jacksonville, New York Giants. We've got a total here near the bottom of the 40-point total here. 40-point total. The Jets are a pretty small favorite here on the road, -3, -3.5. It looked like Aaron Rodgers finally got going a little bit last week. He's kind of trendy under the weeds. I've heard his name kind of brought up a little. He threw for over 300 yards for the first time in, I think, 2.5, 3 years last week. 339 yards passing for Rodgers there. Easy to target, easy to stack him up too with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. Any thoughts for you here, Drew? And here's one of the other tight ends that a lot of people are going to be playing here in Brenton Strange at 2,500 from the Jacksonville side. And then you got Brian Robinson Brian Thomas as well from the Jacksonville side. Anything really sticking out to you here in this game?
Yeah, I think I actually like this game quite a bit. I was going to pull up what Strange did last game. He had 1 target, 1 reception. So again, cheap opportunities is kind of what you're looking for. But I do like the Jacksonville side quite a bit. Brian Thomas has been extremely consistent. He's still under 6K. I think he's been over 16 points, fantasy points, the last 3 games. Been stacking them up, off and on, but definitely one-offs. I've had a lot of lineups with one-off Brian Thomas the last couple weeks. Brenton Strange, like you said, is a fine punt. He's got a pretty strong projection at 2,500. And again, that's a punt tight end for those listening. I do have some Tank Bigsby. I think that's fine. And some Mac Jones. And I honestly don't mind. I wouldn't say stacking this up, the game up, but I do say, if you're going to play 2 of those guys, if you're going to play Strange and Thomas, you might as well throw in Mac Jones. But I really don't have a ton of interest from the Jets side. I have a little bit of Breece Hall just as of now because he's, projecting pretty well. He's almost 20 points at 6,400. But I think, generally speaking, this game is probably going to be, a scratch off besides playing the Jacksonville guys that are going to get the most volume. And that's basically Brian Thomas having, I think, 10 or 12 targets the last 3 games. So I think that's probably it. I don't have a lot of exposure on the Jets side, even though they're the favorite here.
Yeah, I'm kind of off the Jets as well. I kind of lean Jacksonville, even Jacksonville plus the points in this game. I do like the Brian Thomas call there. He's a guy I've been playing as well. Yeah, he's got 29 targets over the last 3 games, so pretty solid there for under 6K. So I really like the Brian Thomas stuff. And then I'm gonna have some Strange in there as well. The last game he started when Anthony Ingram was out. He put up 12 points there in a game against the Colts earlier this year. Found the end zone in that game. He's found the end zone a couple times this year. Has a couple games over 10 points. If he can get you 10 points at 2,500, I would just absolutely lock that in. So I'm going to be playing.
I would probably prefer. if we're going 1v1, I would probably prefer Strange over Bellinger. Are you kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, probably. I think I'm going to play like 4 tight ends. I'm going to play a lot of like double tight end builds too. If you can get like 10 out of 2 of those 2,500 guys, you can really load up with like the Josh Allens and the Jamar Chases and really go kind of stars and scrubs. It's kind of the way I'm approaching some of the stuff, especially in like 3 max, the smaller fields in 3 max. I'm going to be punting with a couple of these cheaper tight ends to try and load up on that upside for the bigger price guys later. So I'll be overweight on Strange in the tight end and even potentially the flex. I've looked at a couple of teams where you play Strange and Stone Smart, and then you can get some really, really upside teams there and some higher totals that we'll get to later. But yeah, I'm mainly just on Strange and Thomas in this game. I'm underweight on the Jets here as well. So, and then we can go to let's jump over to another kind of a lower total game, but we've got some action here on the one side. Washington at New Orleans. We've seen Jaden Daniels is going to. I think he's going to get a little bit of usage here, a little bit of ownership. The upside here. A lot of people are projecting Washington to kind of run over New Orleans here. The Saints have Jake Hayner starting, so they're in some rough situations there. You got Alvin Kamara. I actually was lucky didn't get overweight on Alvin Kamara last week. Kind of busted as chalk. Scored 13 points. I expect another kind of rough game for him. 7,700 is a little too high price for me when I like some other guys priced up in that upper tier. I think Brian Robinson is interesting as kind of a little bit of leverage off of the Jaden Daniels stacks. But Brian Robinson, I think he's going to get kind of steamed up a little bit because this is a really good spot for him. You've been able to run on the Saints pretty easily this year. What's catching your eye here, Drew, with the Commanders and the Saints here in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to lean into Brian Robinson a bit, and I'm kind of scared. The last couple games, he's had a couple break-off runs, and it's kind of racked up some fantasy points. But I do think he's cheap enough in a good game script, a strong total, almost 27 points. Brian Robinson is probably my main or only target from this game is going to probably be what it's going to be. Alvin Kamara has been sick all week. He was a full participant on Friday, but I don't trust it. At this point in the season, at least at 7,700, there's just better options with more upside. So honestly, man, this game's kind of a skip for me. I have some very low exposure to some defenses. Well, hopefully this is a low game and some turnovers. Both sides have been prone to some turnovers. But yeah, I'm with you on Brian Robinson. He stands out as a pretty strong, upside play and value play at 6,200. So that's probably it for me.
Yeah, I think you can include like McLaurin in some one-offs there. He's had a couple of games back-to-back over 24 DK points. I think he's interesting. The price tag's getting up there a little bit, though. He's no longer in the upper 6Ks like he was there for a while. Now he's breached the 7Ks there, 7,200. I think he's fine as like a one-off play, though. Definitely the guy that they've been looking to on the big passing plays and such. He's got 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games, so I think he's fine for a one-off spot if you want to go there. I expect Washington to kind of handle the Saints pretty easily here, which should lead to a lot of Brian Robinson in the second half. He's been really good around the goal line, so I'll be on some Robinson as well with you there. 16 carries last week, over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown last week. Has seen a couple catches, not too much usage in the past game, but I don't think they'll be needed here. I was looking at Jeremy McNichols. I was maybe going to play him if he was in the low 4Ks, but they priced him up to 5,300. I think that's a little too egregious for that. So I'll just be going with Brian Robinson. And then I think
what do you think the avenue for McNichols?
I was thinking if they got up big, like he could maybe get some run and some like third down work in the second half and such. He should be the passing down back, I would imagine.
So like garbage time TD maybe?
Yeah.
Kind of your idea. I got you.
Yeah, I was hoping he was going to be a lot cheaper. I haven't seen his price tag on FanDuel. I'm sure he's probably close to the minimum price over there. I think Zach Ertz is another guy that's warrants some consideration here at 4K as a cheaper tight end. He's just been getting so much good usage around the goal line. 3 straight touchdowns the last 3 games, all inside the red zone. They're 6, 8, and 7, and 8 targets. So he's had 6+ targets in the last 4 games. just a guy that they've been looking to in the passing game. I think he warrants consideration. He wouldn't surprise me if he scored like 12 to 17 again, like he has the last few weeks. Any thoughts from you from Zach Ertz there at 4K?
Yeah, he's okay. Honestly, it's probably the smarter play. I was going to bring up Juwan Johnson. Like we talk about some cheaper tight ends. Like Juwan Johnson's been pretty strong. Like he's been solid right around 5 targets and making a good bit out of it. I mean, getting close to 10 fantasy points on average over the last like 8 weeks or 6 weeks. So there's plenty of cheap options. And honestly, I would probably just steer away from like the super chalky builds when I started looking at some of these. Like the range of outcomes with Juwan Johnson is very overlapping with the other cheap tight ends we talked about. So and then Zach Ertz is in the same ballpark like you're talking about. So plenty of good cheap tight ends, and getting different there could be a difference maker. Like if one of those have, you could go for 80 yards and a touchdown or 2 TDs or something like that, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, for sure. We can jump over into a game that could be a shootout. I think this game we could see a lot of back and forth in this game, definitely from the Bengals side as the Bengals head to Tennessee. There could be a little bit of weather in this game. It looks like there's about a 55-60% chance of rain. Not too much wind zone in this game, but we'll definitely see a lot of ownership in this game with the Joe Burrow doubles here. I think T. Higgins burned a lot of people last week, but I think he's a great target. I mean, he's going to see a bunch of ownership here. I'm seeing T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Chase Brown all around that 20% mark. I think Chase Brown and Chase will come in higher owned than T. Higgins, so I think T. Higgins will come in a little better there. Joe Burrow, I expect his ownership to kind of get pulled up as well, maybe potentially like 12 to 15% by the time the cards are flipped, but it's your best ball teams here as well. And then Ridley under 6K. I think Ridley is a great option on DraftKings and FanDuel. He's cheap on both sides. What are you doing here? Are you going to double down with these Bengals stacks, or what are you thinking here?
Yeah, might as well. Sweat it twice. They're in a good spot, very good spot. So, yeah, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase are going to be the 2 highest owned on the slate for me overall. T. Higgins is totally fine as a filler. He's just expensive. So, like, getting up to Jamar Chase would be my preferred option. And then stacking with Joe Burrow, obviously. I will say, like, you're spot on with Calvin Ridley. Like, Calvin Ridley's ownership here in this spot is egregiously low. There's also, like, if you want to go down the narrative street, like, just talk about they're behind. They're going to have to make some big plays. Calvin Ridley, so far this season, has had, like, every other week or every 3 weeks have had these big weeks. But there's something about these wide receivers when they have, like, Calvin Ridley at one point, a couple years ago before his gambling problems or whatever, he was going to be one of those top, Jamar Chase wide receivers. And like going up against the top team with a top wide receiver might just, boost him a little bit. So I actually like the run back with Calvin Ridley a lot. So, getting some Joe Burrow stacks with Jamar Chase and Chase Brown and run them back with Calvin Ridley. But you're spot on there. The Tennessee side is really low owned. And I think this game could be a shootout. I'm also biased and rooting for Cincinnati to keep it a shootout. But I do think the Tennessee side has some merit for sure. Specifically, like Tajay Spears, if you want to play the cheap running back, if you want to do like the opposite stacks against Cincinnati, you can start to pair up the running back with Will Levis and Calvin Ridley, and then have the run back with Jamar Chase. But I am strongly on board the Cincinnati. Score 45 points, please.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely be higher on the Cincinnati passing attack there. I think Will Levis should have no trouble passing on this pass defense. Everybody's been able to throw on the Bengals pass defense. Even Cooper Rush was able to last week. So I think we could see Will Levis have some success here. He can push the ball down the field to Calvin Ridley. I think that's a great pairing there. A guy I kind of like for like the million maker. I think a guy that's going to go really, really low owned, like probably 5% or less, and it showed the upside to put up 20 plus points multiple times this year, is Tony Pollard at 6,700. I think he is a great like tournament play there. If this game does shoot out and they get many goal line opportunities here in the red zone, I wouldn't surprise me if Tony Pollard was the guy that put up 2 touchdowns in this game and is really going to be really see no ownership. I'd be surprised if he was over 5% owned in this slate, actually. So I kind of got some consideration in
Yeah.
Tony Pollard. I'll have him
Just watch
in the
his
MMA rounds.
injury. I think that's why Tajay Spears works out
Yeah,
well for me at the moment, just because he's still questionable. So just
yeah,
keep an eye on the injury report because he
right,
missed
yeah.
Thursday and Wednesday, I think.
Yep. I think it sounded like he was going to give it a go, but yeah, definitely pay attention to that as the lock approaches next week. Last week, 20 plus carries in his last game. He's had 20 plus carries quite a few times this year and some work in the passing game. So I think he's interesting, but definitely highest on. I actually like Higgins a little more than Chase this week.
Really?
Higgins had seen double-digit targets in the 2 games before last week, and last week maybe he just kind of got lost in the shuffle there, and maybe he went to Burrow and was like, I need the ball. I mean, he had 2 catches last week after seeing 23 targets the 2 games before, so maybe that can kind of flip-flop. But Jamar Chase is the absolute alpha in the NFL, the best wide receiver, and definitely can go for 40 at any moment's notice like we've seen a couple of times this year. So Chase is definitely going to be in the player pool. He's found the end zone at least once in the last 4 games and 6 of the last 7 games too. So Chase has definitely got that nuclear upside. So I don't really like too much on the tight end side from either side here. I think the Tennessee defense, if you're looking to punt though, 2,300 for the Tennessee defense, I think that's interesting. I mean, we've seen Burrow make some mistakes at times. If you want to punt to get really different at 2,300, don't bother me. I don't think.
No, Cincinnati, dude, goes both ways. Like they look completely awful some weeks, and then like amazing, scoring 40 points plus some other weeks. So like, yeah, I don't hate the punt defenses, especially against like a strong total like that. Because it's such a big flip. 26-point team total, and they could easily score 16 or 15. Like it just completely changed. And who knows? The weather doesn't look that bad, but you never know. So punting off a defense isn't the worst thing in the world. Get 5 points and move on with your day.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds great there. And then we'll hit on another game that I think could be a banger. I think this is my favorite game of the whole week. We've got the Dolphins going to Houston in the Dome game here. Pretty healthy total here. Houston's a short favorite here, -2.5, -3, depending where you're looking. My favorite play on the whole slate is going to be Tua this week at 6,100. He's been crushing as of late. 37 attempts average, 76% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns to 1 interception over the last 7 games since returning. So I think Tua is the guy that I'm going to be looking to anchor my teams around this week. I like the Tua, the Waddle. Waddle's been kind of getting brought up the last few weeks. Tua has scored at least 24 DK points, I think, in the last 4 weeks, 6,100. And I think a lot of people are going to be gravitating towards Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert around the same price range. At least the cash teams are trending that way. So I really like Tua. I like Nico Collins running it back. What's your idea of this game? You got any strong leans in this game as well?
I'm spot on with you at the moment. I got a lot of Tua with Tyreek. I got a lot of Tua with Jalen Waddle. Mostly revolving around 2-man Miami stacks. I don't go overweight on QBs very often, but definitely Tua in this spot. I'm surprised like A-Chain isn't higher for me. I know his price has been bumping up, but he still has a really strong projection, so I might have to reconsider that. But yeah, Tua looks really good with how Waddle's been playing and how he's been targeting Waddle, and obviously with Tyreek Hill as a weapon. So I don't want to overlook Houston though. Not just because they're the favorite with a really strong overall game total, but they're extremely low owned, and I've been playing a shit ton of them anyways. But like you don't even have to play Stroud. Like Stroud's still pretty cheap. He's $100 more than Tua, and he's got a lot of rushing upside. A good game script potentially if this does shoot out. And you got Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz, so like another cheap tight end that you can throw into your player pool in a really good game script. Like honestly, Dalton Schultz is at 3,300 is kind of absurd to me, just because they can target him a lot in a lot of different situations. But yeah, I like both sides of this game. I'm higher on Miami, a lot of Tua with Tyreek Hill and a lot of Tua with Waddle. I will do a few 3-man stacks. None of those with A-Chain. Like I said, I might have to look back at what I want to do with A-Chain. He's just a little bit expensive.
Yeah.
But I will say the Houston side is also very intriguing. with Nico, Dalton Schultz, and CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I think another guy that they could look to get back into the moment here off the bye week is Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell is a guy that wouldn't surprise me if he broke off a big game here at 5,400. I think this game's gonna see a lot of back and forth. I look for this game to kind of shoot out inside of a dome. The best weather once we get into like late mid-December like this, I like to kind of target some of the dome games. And Dell really was losing targets there going into the bye week. His targets went downward in 4 straight games going into the bye week. Maybe they got into the bye week and watched some more tape, and we're like, maybe we should get Dell back involved in this more so we can make like a playoff run. Any thoughts from you from Tank Dell and like the Millie Maker or large field?
None at the moment. I won't argue against it so much. Yeah. I don't have any. He's been very unproductive with the targets he has been getting. I just think they're going to, I think Dalton Schultz is the guy that they'll lean into a little bit more in this game. And then obviously Nico Collins has been very good. He's got to be one of the strongest projections at his price at 8K basically on the slate. So I won't be, as of now, I won't be playing any Tank Dell because I'm not really stacking the Houston setup a ton anyways. Yeah. But he's not cheap enough for scoring 5 fantasy points. So
that would definitely kill you.
Try not to hate on Tank Dell too much. He did good for me earlier in the season, but not for tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely more so on the Waddle Nico. I really like that little single with the bring back there. Definitely Tyreek Hill is still too cheap, 7,400. Huge upside there as well. So yeah, I think we'll see some fireworks in that game. So Tua will be my highest owned quarterback probably. And then we can get into another game. We're going to see a lot of weather, it sounds like, in this game. Interesting game here between the Chiefs and the Browns. Sounds like there's about a 90% chance of rain in this game. The winds could approach gusts up to 30 miles an hour, I've seen, with sustained winds 15 to 20 throughout the game. So we could see some weather in this. Need to kind of pay attention to that more so as the game approaches tomorrow. But we could see some wind here. I think that could make for like a bigger, like a Pacheco game here for the Chiefs. I'm looking at taking his over on rushing attempts tomorrow in the props market. So I like that. Could see like just I know Jameis is going to chuck no matter what, but we could see kind of an ugly type game here. And Elijah Moore has one of the cheapest prices I've seen all year over on FanDuel. So he'll be the major chalk on FanDuel tomorrow. He's basically min price over there. And you've been able to target the Chiefs throughout the slot here. So any thoughts from you here in this Chiefs-Browns game with potentially a lot of weather in this game?
Yeah, for sure. Like basically anything with low ADOTs is kind of what I'm going for. So like Travis Kelce is probably going to be my main target out of this game. Pacheco, totally fine. I get it. But that's probably it. Like Njoku I talked about last week, and he did okay. I think he scored 10 or 11 points. I just don't love Cleveland. I just don't love this game as a shootout, like especially with the weather. And I don't think I'm in the minority with how people got burned a little bit on Thursday night with a little bit of weather issues to start off that game throughout the game. So, I just think if you're going to target this game, you just got to look for, something short or something on the ground. And that really just leads to Pacheco and Travis Kelce for me. I just don't think I'm going to have a ton of exposure to this game overall. There's a lot of really good games. I don't want to kind of get cute, if you know what I mean. So it's probably going to be some defenses maybe mixed in there, but for now it's Kelce at 5,700. I think if they can get to their team total of 24 points is what it is right now for Kansas City, Kelce's going to be the person they go to. And obviously Pacheco is fine as well. He's like the alternate, but for me, it's Kelce is the main avenue. Yeah,
I agree there. I think I'll only play Elijah Moore on FanDuel where he's 4,700, 200 off the min price over there. So I'll probably be almost locking potentially Elijah Moore over on FanDuel just because of the cheap price tag over there. 5K on DK is a little expensive, far above some other receivers I like more. Xavier Worthy's 5,100. I just don't see the Chiefs airing out like deep passes and such. Yeah. Could he catch like a screen pass and take it to the house potentially? But I'm just right there with you on like Kelce and maybe Pacheco or something like that. But kind of under on this game as a whole. Maybe even look to the defenses a little bit. I think that maybe even the Cleveland defense at 2,200, if it's really bad out there, they could get you like 6 points, and really they could lose the game and still get you 6 or 7 relatively easy, I think, in this spot. So maybe I go to some punting at defense there potentially, but not too much for me in this game as well. Yeah, Kevin Peterson's in the chat there. You got the Kelsey narrative. Oh, where'd it go? I lost it. There it is. The Kelsey homecoming game, Cleveland Heights homecoming high school. So maybe you see a little Kelsey homecoming game there, but I wouldn't dive too much into that, though. I'm pretty much off that game as a whole. But
does he break up after the season, or what's the deal? When are they breaking up?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it might have been last year. Who knows?
His ownership goes through the roof as soon as that happens. Probably be the Super Bowl. Be something stupid. Somehow Kansas City will get all the way there. They'll luck box their way to the Super Bowl, and then they'll break up.
Somehow it wouldn't surprise me to see them. I mean, they've won so many games, just absolutely wild situations throughout the whole season. But that's good for there. We can get to the last noon game we've got here. We've got the Dallas Cowboys traveling to the Carolina Panthers. A couple of very chalky running backs in this game with Chuba and Rico, both projected to be two of the highest owned running backs on the slate, both in great matchups. I mean, you want to target both of these teams through the ground and through the run game. So hard to kind of fade these guys in this spot. I think I lean Chuba a little more just based off. I think Carolina's got more to play for. Bryce Young's kind of revitalized this team a little bit. He actually looks like a really decent, competent quarterback now, a lot better than most, definitely better than he started out. So I think that him sitting for a while really helped him out there. Get Cooper Rush on the other side. I think Dallas is kind of, I mean, you saw Micah Parsons. He was pretty upset with the way that game ended last week. I think the Cowboys are about ready to call it and tank the rest of the way. What are you thinking in this game here? Carolina is a -3 favorite with a total right around 42 points.
Yeah, the running backs that are cheap is hard to ignore. There's a couple spots with NFL where like the chalk, it's tough to ignore. It's like expensive wide receivers that are chalk just in smash spots, and then cheaper or mid-priced running backs in really good spots, or obviously like a value running back getting into a full workload, like McCaffrey's out or something like that. So yeah, Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dowdle. I'm not gonna fade either of those, even with the elevated ownership. I would just try to get different elsewhere, which, like we've talked about a few games already, there's plenty of opportunities to play some lower owned stacks. But yeah, I don't shy away. I don't know what I want to do as far as playing both of them together in the same game, but certainly, the two of them are pretty high for me. I'm probably gonna have 30% or try to match the field for both tomorrow. I'll probably have some Carolina defense and some Jake Ferguson. I think that's it. I mean, CeeDee Lamb as a one-off is cheap. What's that?
You going to be playing any Thielen? He's off a couple big games.
No. He's pretty low. He's pretty low owned. I haven't been on any Thielen games already, and at this point, I'm just chasing it. So no Thielen for me. And honestly, that could burn me, but there's going to be other avenues I'm going to take. Dude has had a resurrection the last couple weeks, though. Yeah. The guy thought he was out of the league for a while, and then he came back full. He looked like, oh gosh, he was a white wide receiver a couple of years ago. But dude, this guy Thielen has come back strong. So yeah, the main plays for me out of this game, I think just the chalk running backs. Neither one to me stand out as like bad chalk. Like they're both going to be pretty strong workloads. Hubbard's TD upside is pretty strong, honestly. So yeah, I think the only other play, like I said, is Jake Ferguson, and he's another cheap tight end like we keep talking about.
Yeah, I think Chuba potentially could hit 50% in some of these single entries and 3 maxes. I think he'll be the highest owned running back on the slate with Rico not too far behind. If I had to pick one, I would lean Chuba, like I mentioned a little bit ago, but I think Rico has a great matchup here as well. Playing both of them in the same lineup, correlation wise doesn't really line up as a good correlation, but I think this is one of those rare occurrences where it wouldn't surprise me if both these running backs went for 100 yards and a touchdown in this game. So
for context, just so like people are aware, like Hubbard right now has his implied percentage implied probability for a touchdown is 90%. Rico Dowdle's is 75%. Both of their rushing yards is over 80 yards as their like median projection, basically. So it's pretty strong. Like you're approaching Saquon Barkley almost. Like you're 20 yards away from Saquon Barkley projections from last week and you're 6K.
Yeah, I think it's really tough to fade these two guys. So, I mean, they'll definitely be in the pool for me. I'll probably be overweight on both of them there. Yeah, it's just hard to fade these guys. I'll probably have a little bit of Thielen just because 5,400. If he goes for like 20 again, I can see. I mean, Dallas's defense has been easily attackable. So I'll probably have a little bit of Thielen in there still. I've been playing some Bryce Young stacks the last few weeks, so I'll probably still mix in a couple of those with Thielen or Leggett there at 4,700, but nothing too crazy for me in this game. And then we can head into the afternoon slate. We got 5 great games. I really like playing these afternoon slates, and I like it even better when there's more than 2 or 3 games. So we've got the New England Patriots heading to Arizona to play potentially the highest-owned quarterback on this slate here, and Kyler Murray as a 6-point home favorite here with a total around 47 in this game. Marvin Harrison has been a guy that I've mixed in to some teams the last couple of weeks. Really hasn't panned out. He's got 20 targets over the last 2 weeks, just has not been able to do anything with them. He's now priced at 5,500. So I'll probably try and make him work again, at least on one team or something in like a 3 max or a single entry type deal there. I think James Conner is a strong play here. And then Stevenson, I think, is an interesting contrarian play coming back from the other side, as Hunter Henry will probably be one of the more popular guys from the Patriots side. What's sticking out to you here in this game? Pretty good total here in this game as well.
Yeah, so as of now, I got 0 New England and a ton of Arizona, just stacked up every which way. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, Kyler Murray. I got Michael Wilson, who's at 4,400 mixed in there a little bit. But yeah, most of my exposures in this game, all of the exposures in this game are Arizona. And most of them are just stacks of Kyler Murray, Harrison, and McBride. I was pretty heavy on the McBride stacks last week. Didn't do anything. I don't know. He dudded. I can't remember what he scored. But I'm going to go 14, straight back. Well, he got to 14 late because he was on like 2 through the first half, if I'm not mistaken. Something terrible. And then I think the Cardinals defense is kind of just too cheap to ignore at 3K with a 6-point spread. So I wouldn't ignore that. I've been off and on. I'm not really sure what the proper route to do with James Conner is. I've been off and on him all year. He's been very consistent, but he's shown no ceiling. So I don't know. As of now, I have a pretty good share of him, but nothing like crazy. But again, I keep going back. If you're talking about Millie Maker, what's the ceiling? And like I just don't see him scoring more than 25 or 30 points. And like you kind of need that. Yeah. He's super cheap, so he's going to keep hitting optimal. So just kind of watch yourself, I guess, with that. But yeah, the game is short and sweet for me. I love the Arizona side. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride. Those are my 3 favorites.
Yeah, same here. I think McBride will be like the 4th. I think I'm only going to play like 4 tight ends. I'm going to play the punt tight ends, and then I'm going to play McBride. McBride's had 41 targets the last 3 weeks, still has yet to find the end zone. So if he can find the end zone, get some positive TD regression come in, I mean, he's the guy that could go off for like 30 in this game. I think there's so much separation at the tight end position that he can bring. I think he is a very, very strong play this week. If he goes for like 35 and no other tight end goes for like 10 or something, you got so much leverage at that position against everybody.
That's the winner. Like, you don't necessarily have to be cute and do it this way, but like if you talk about double tight end, but you don't do 2 cheap tight ends, you do an expensive Trey McBride with a cheap tight end. 6K is a lot for a tight end, but dudes can get the volume. So I think that's probably the ticket. If you're talking about bad chalk, like, dude, those tight ends that get chalky, I don't have the metric on how often they fail, but just, I have my own bias. They fail quite often. So playing like an expensive tight end is probably always at the end of the night, you're looking back on it like, why didn't I play XYZ, the expensive tight end? I punted off this guy for 2 points. So I'm with you there. Like he is expensive, but I would be like, I would be trying to figure out ways to fit him in. And maybe that is with another cheap tight end, but I would look, I think his ownership's too high. I think it comes in much lower than what it's projected right now.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the other cheapies. So I think, playing him with a $2,500 tight end or something like that is a great avenue to fit him in there. It's basically like you're playing a 6K wide receiver almost, and he's outscoring a lot of those 6K wide receivers as well. So I like the McBride stuff. I'm still kind of going back and forth on the Connor as well. 6,600. I mean, on paper and the models and everything, love him for the price tag there. He's a guy that could definitely – he hasn't really popped like you've said, though. I mean, he's put up 20 to 22 points 5 or 6 times, but that's not really going to get you to the Millie Maker winner.
I don't think he's been on a single Millie Maker lineup, maybe one all year, but he's been very consistent, but he hasn't had the big upside of Charbonnet of 40 points or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like there's just it hasn't happened. So that's my biggest issue with Connor. And maybe it happens at one point. Maybe it's just destined to happen. But as of now, it's just been like, a high floor, low ceiling, cash game play, single entry, small field play, not Millie Maker play. Yeah,
for sure. I like that as well. And then we can jump over to Tampa Bay at the Chargers here. We can hit on the other chalkier quarterback that looks like it's going to be one of the cash plays. I think a lot of people are either going to play Kyler or Herbert in cash games this week. Herbert's under 6K. I kind of hesitant to play him though. He hasn't really shown the ability to even score 20 points, DFS DK points much this year. Twice I think he's hit 20 plus points. I just personally rather play like Tua against Herbert, but Herbert definitely makes a lot of sense. You can play him. It looks like Ladd's going to be back. One of my favorite plays in this game is Sterling Shepard, actually. Since the bye week, Sterling Shepard's kind of taken over that Godwin role there. He's playing out of the slot. He's getting a 20% target share the last 3 weeks out of the slot. You can attack the Chargers pretty well in that area. He hasn't really crushed, though, yet. But 4K, I think the upside for him is interesting. If you're gonna play like a mini in this game or something, I think Shepard's interesting in this game. The news we got to keep an eye on though is the Bucky Irvin stuff. It doesn't look like he's gonna play, but they say that they're gonna let him go through a pregame walkthrough before the game, and this is a late game, so a lot of chalk will potentially be around Rashad White. I think if Bucky Irvin's out, what are you doing with this game here, Drew?
Yeah, I need Bucky Irving for best ball as well, so that's not ideal. The chalky Herbert's probably not my thing. I probably, if you build 100 lineups, you're probably just going to match the field. I think that's fine, but like going overweight on Herbert doesn't make sense. Like to your point, Tua, if you just paired the two together, who do you want to take? Who has more upside in the game situation and like the weapons they have? Tua all day. So assuming he doesn't get concussed. But, Ladd McConkey has been extremely consistent, a lot of volume, getting, 6 to 12 targets basically the last 6 weeks. So I don't mind that. This probably be a game of all the games. This might be the one that I stay away from the most as far as like a pretty good general game total. I just have an uneasy feeling about it. So I do like Tampa Bay, but I don't have a lot of exposure to them right now, and certainly not the Chargers. I know you mentioned Stone Smart at 2,600. I think that's fine. He should definitely be in the pool. And honestly, I think if you want to bail out, I think Palmer makes a lot of sense for the Chargers. So we'll see what McConkey does. I think he plays, but we'll see how this game shakes out. I would not mind a really cheap wide receiver from the Chargers, and that's even without stacking Herbert. But generally speaking, I'm kind of low on this game. We'll see if McConkey's in. assuming he is, but I just don't like the Chargers chalk. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, I think Stone Smart will probably end somewhere around 6 to 8 DK points, most likely with upside, depending if he gets a touchdown or something like that. But he's definitely a guy that I can see
20% owned, yeah, and then McConkey's 25% owned or so. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. It's just they're very popular. Like that stack that's high, very high.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of leaned the under in this game as well. Kind of potentially look at the defenses. I don't know, but Stones. I'll definitely have Stone Smart in the player pool. Mike Evans is an upside GPP play as well. Kind of busted last week after the big game against Carolina. Kind of busted against the Raiders last week. Only caught 4 passes in that game. And then Josh Palmer. I like to call on Josh Palmer. I think he's the upside millie maker play type guy. Last week, 9 targets. I know Ladd's going to be back, but Josh Palmer was always one of those guys with upside that people have been talking about the last few years, trying to make him have that leap to kind of take over like an every down role. It really hasn't really transitioned into that yet. Then you got Quentin Johnson there too. It just depends if the ball hits his hands and he can actually hold on to it or not. Yeah, I'm kind of underweight on this game as well. I think Stone Smart will be a guy that I generally just have.
There's also a lot of injury stuff. Like honestly, if you look down like the Tampa Bay board, you just talked about Sterling Shepard. Like if he's out, it starts to open up either more opportunities for Mike Evans and he makes him more viable, or there's some other cheap wide receiver like Trey Palmer or somebody that steps up. So maybe there's some cheap opportunities, but for like the chalkiest plays as like at this moment, that's not what I'm a fan of. I don't think I want to go down that route.
And then, like I said, we have to pay attention to the Bucky news. That could get really muddied up if Bucky's somehow in, but only plays limited role, and Rachaad White and Sean Tucker there. I'll probably just avoid that situation as a whole, but we'll have to check that as we get there. Let's move to Detroit versus the Colts here. We got Bo Nix. I actually like some Bo Nix this week. I've been playing him in Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's been one of the most consistent pass catchers outside of like Jamar Chase and some of those alphas. But for the price range, he's been one of the most consistent pass catchers all year. He's still under 7K, 6,600. I think he makes a lot of sense in this matchup as well. I like the Denver defense a lot as well against a mobile quarterback who's turnover prone in Richardson. Denver has been scoring 10-plus points most of the games this year. I know the last 3 weeks I've played them, and they've put up 10-plus points the last 3 weeks. So I'll be going right back to a Denver as a short home favorite here with a total of 44. Anything that you're doing in this game here, Drew?
Honestly, no. This feels a lot like, I forget which week. It was later in the playoffs last year where we had 2 teams, really good team totals. The ownership looks respected, but they're all, moderately priced. Josh Allen takes up all the projection on the Buffalo side. I'm not really sure what to do from the Buffalo side. It's kind of been the theme all year. Amari Cooper is 5,300. That's probably my favorite play of the game. He's a cheap wide receiver. They got a 26-point team total. That's it. 8,500 Josh Allen, non-stackable. Outside of cash games or like single entry, small field single entry stuff, I'm probably not going to play. But Amari Cooper makes a lot of sense. As far as Detroit, I don't know, man. Laporte's at 4,400 is probably my favorite Detroit play. I don't mind Jahmyr Gibbs at 7,500, but that's probably it. I think overall, trying to sugarcoat this game a little bit, this is a really good total, but I'm not sure it's a great fantasy game.
Oh, yeah, the Detroit game.
What are we on? What are you talking about? Denver?
I was talking about Denver. We can talk
about
bad.
I could have sworn you said Lions, dude.
Yeah, no. We can talk
Detroit. I think the chat needs to rewind it. I'm pretty sure you said Detroit to start off, and then maybe you switched. Maybe you said Denver. That's my bad. I'll talk about Denver. Hang on. Give me a second.
It don't matter.
Denver. Fucked up. That's on me.
I was going to save that game for the end since it had the highest total.
Yeah, and I hated it the most. But okay, Denver. Yeah, I like Denver quite a bit. So I'm much higher on Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson with Michael Pittman. Those are my two favorite to pair. I know if Rubio was here, he would hate it, but I think Josh Downs is a nice additional stack. They're very cheap. So Anthony Richardson, cheap, 5,800. Michael Pittman, cheap, 5,200. And then Josh Downs, 5,100. He is questionable and chalky, but I think there's a lot of upside on the Indianapolis side. The Denver side is probably just going to be, I don't know. I do have some Bo Nix stacks. I think you were talking about that. That's probably where some additional confusion lies from the Denver side. Talking about Bo Nix in a Detroit game. But yeah, I think Cortland Sutton with Bo Nix is fine. That's probably the majority of my exposure. Ivele as like a one-off on Denver is fine, but I think the majority of this game is going to be Indianapolis just because it's easy to stack. They're very cheap, allows you to pay up for the expensive running backs if you want to target them, and then maybe get different with some other, expensive Jamar Chase or something like that as a wide receiver. So yeah, I'll make it pretty easy. I do like Cortland Sutton as a one-off, a run back, or stacking with Bo Nix. And then Indianapolis stacks with Anthony Richardson, Pittman, and Downs. So,
yeah,
I think you said you like the Denver defense, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I like the Denver defense quite a bit. They've been scoring over 10-plus points. I've played them the last few weeks. They've put up 10-plus points in the last 3 weeks. Last week they had 2 touchdowns against the Browns. Anthony Richardson's turnover prone as well, so I think they've had an interception the last 3 weeks. They've had multiple sacks the last 4 or 5 weeks, so I like Denver there. And then Cortland Sutton, 8-plus targets in the last 6 games, and he's had the 100-yard bonus in 3 of the last 6 games. So, definitely overweight on Cortland Sutton. He's just been one of the guys I just continue to just pound in there, and it's just wild that his price tag really hasn't came up that much. It comes up like $100 each week. It seems like, but this week did see a pretty good price bump from 6.1 to 6.6, but he's still a great play there. I don't mind some of the Colts guys coming back there as well. On paper, like the matchup sets up really good for the Denver rushing game against the Colts, but I just have no trust in putting any of these 3 running backs in a lineup or something there with Javonte, McGleal, and Estime. More so just the Bo Nix single with Sutton's the main thing with me, and then sprinkling in the defense. That's pretty much it for me in that game, though.
Shout out to Jeffrey, who confirmed you did say Detroit, Snyder. Jeff's a regular in the golf chat. Right, I think that's half your bad. I'm not going to completely take the blame, and also half my bad because I zoned out after you said Detroit, and I just was looking at my own stuff. So 50-50 split. I'll take it with you.
I'll take the hit on that.
Apologies to the chat and the viewers. Oh God. Too late on a Saturday. And then all my MMA teams are dead. So I'm just pissed off. I'm halfway thinking about that. I'm like, why did that guy lose? There's 2 fighters that were minus 110, 8,200 and 8K. And I played all the 8,200 guy. He lost. No. He lost he scored 24 points. Like how fucking terrible.
That's brutal.
All right, we can move on. Where do you want to go? Detroit? Are we going to Detroit this time, or are we going to Philadelphia?
Let's just save Detroit for the last game, just because it's got the 55-point total. Let's go to Philadelphia, which I'm surprised the Eagles are favored by this much over the Steelers. I was projecting this to be kind of lower spread. Generally, you like to take Tomlin and the Steelers in these situations, but I actually think this could be a spot where the Steelers could get put on fraud watch maybe here. In the next 3 weeks, they play Philly, Baltimore, and Kansas City. So we'll definitely see what Pittsburgh's made of in these next 3 weeks. But I think Saquon is an interesting guy. He busted last week as major chalk, but this week we get him probably under 10% owned this week. And those are the times that I really like to play Saquon, when he's not as highly owned. He's put up those big games this year like we've seen. So I think Saquon here, but we have the narrative there. You got A.J. Brown with the 2 it's open signs above his locker room as he's getting interviewed there. He had 2 signs that said, "I'm open," or something like that, hanging above his locker. You got you got the Hurts, AJ Brown drama going on. What are you doing here with this Eagles game? 5.5-point favorites here with a semi-lower total around 43 points in this game.
Yeah, it's just going to be one-offs. I think, again, trying to get some cheaper tight ends or cheaper running backs and play some of the expensive wide receivers. I do like A.J. Brown. I do like Saquon Barkley. And that's really it for this game. Again, a decent team total. Pittsburgh played extremely well last week, and I'm not really going to go back to it. I know Pat Freiermuth at 3,900, but I think I'm going to go cheaper on the tight end side than that mid-price 4K. And then Najee Harris, I don't think I'm going to play any with them chasing, ideally. I know you said you think it should be a shorter spread, but Philadelphia, I mean, they have all the talent. If they get moving, they should be able to get up to 2 or 3 touchdowns before the half. So that's kind of my angle in this game. So play the one-offs that are the big scores, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, and that's it. Again, it's very expensive. It's difficult to stack.
Do you have any conviction on the Eagles defense here? I think this could be a decent spot for the Eagles defense here at 3,100.
I like the Eagles defense a lot. Yeah, 3,100. They're cheap. Good Pittsburgh turnover rate. So yeah, I don't mind that. With or without other Philadelphia guys, it doesn't matter. So I like the Eagles defense quite a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my main deal here with Eagles defense. Maybe some Saquon for the correlation there, but Pittsburgh without Pickens in a really tough road matchup. I think the spread is right, and I think we see Philly kind of roll over the Steelers in this spot. So I think it could be like a big Barkley and Eagles defense type game. So that would be where I would be mainly leaning towards is those two spots in this game. But kind of a throwaway game. Like I think it's an under game as well, where it's like probably like 24-3 or something like that. Eagles or 24-10 or something.
I think it could go better for Saquon. Like Saquon last week dudded because he basically just didn't have a touchdown. They didn't use him inside the red zone efficiently. But he still had 124 yards, and he's been over 100 yards the last 4 games. So his price has come down. I think Saquon's actually in a pretty good spot. The variance of TDs is pretty big. I mean, that's almost 10 points if you count whatever rushing or target they got to get the TD. So that's going to be another 10 points. So you would have scored 27 points, and we have a different conversation here. So
it just comes down to if they get the ball on the 1 yard line or not. Because if it's at the 1 yard line,
or even. Yeah, obviously that's not ideal, but getting inside the 10 and using him instead of, tush pushing or trying to find A.J. Brown, that's just the variance of, but like you said, he dudded, but it's very close to him. He broke the slate. He scored 30. I know there was other running backs that scored 38 plus, but I just think looking back at going to a guy that was in such a good spot, I think he's in a similarly good spot. Really strong rushing yard projections, 102 yards, 25 rushing attempts. They just got to feed it to him when they're inside the red zone, and he can score 30 pretty easily, I think, here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we can head on over to my bad earlier. We can head to Detroit for this game. We got the Dome game here, 55-point total in this game, highest total of the year, spread right around 2.5, 3, depending where you're looking. We've got Detroit Buffalo. This has all the makings for a blowout or just a lot of fireworks in this game. It's kind of tough to come to how you're going to get to it, though. Josh Allen's playing Superman. He's going to score a lot of the points on himself. The Bills have an implied team total of 26, and the Lions are right around 28.5. So it's interesting to find out where all the offense is going to come here. I kind of like playing this as kind of just like some minis and such, like Cooper, J-Mo, or even like St. Brown. I think this is a spot where St. Brown could actually get going in a situation like this, where if we see some back and forth. And I think Amon-Ra is going to be a little lower owned on this slate. Definitely lower owned than like Chase and stuff like that. He's interesting to me in tournaments if you can get there. And if you can get to like a Josh Allen, like if you play the 2 cheap tight ends, you can definitely get to Josh Allen at quarterback at 8,500. I think I lean to Allen with Cooper or Allen with Shakur. We saw Shakur kind of get there last week, but even with 24, he really didn't break the slate. So I'm kind of hesitant to even play any of these pass catchers with Josh Allen just because we just haven't seen him like really bust a slate because Josh Allen's probably going to get one or two on the ground most likely. And then it just comes down to him being able to throw for 3 like we saw last week. And then depends on if he spreads that around or whatnot. Both of the running backs from Detroit are interesting, but I could see this game like you were kind of hinting at earlier, like all the fantasy points just get kind of spread out and like everyone gets 12 to 15 points, which really helps nobody in DFS.
Basically, or it's all Josh Allen and it's whether or not he gets 30 plus, basically. Yeah. 54 points last week is absurd, but like he's been pretty good fantasy performer, scoring 20 to 30 points every game. But he's 8,500. So like, I think honestly, nothing changes from what I said earlier. Hopefully that holds true. Obviously I'm lower on this game in general, but like just thinking through it, like as far as like the fantasy points go, I think the only angle would be to take Josh Allen as a solo. And I just don't run a lot of lineups that don't stack. And I would be willing to bet if I went back and reran my stuff with no stacks and just took some Josh Allen solo lineups, they probably would perform pretty well. And he would probably be bumped up in my exposure. So I probably will go try to do that because he's got a 25-point projection. Obviously he has upside over 30 points and he's got a floor around like 18 points. That's probably not enough to win the Millie Maker, but like the upside of 30 to 35 points I just don't think you can pair him with anybody that really has, you don't have to pair him with anybody. Like, yeah, you should probably try, but like, you don't necessarily have to pair him with Amari Cooper as an example. So I think the one-offs make a lot of sense to me, but then going back and looking at like Josh Allen, he's just so expensive. You probably just want to play him solo and hope they score 4 touchdowns. He has 2 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I think the way I would try and stack this up, at least in a couple, would be Josh Allen with Cooper and Jameson Williams. Both of those guys have home run upside. You saw Cooper have 14 targets last week, was narrowly just missed the 100-yard bonus. So say he catches 7 for 110 and a touchdown. I think that will definitely pay off the 5,300 price tag. So you can put in Allen, Cooper, and Williams. Jameson Williams has the upside to potentially break a slate. So you can play that stack there, and you're still going to have $5,100 remaining per position, and that's even including like a cheap tight end and a defense or something. So I think that's probably the path that I will look to go to, just because if those 2 players nuke, I think that's the path to potentially getting to the Millie Maker win. I've just been playing some Jameson, still under 6K. I think those 2 in the mid 5Ks definitely have the upside. Jameson's hit the 25-plus point mark a couple times this year, and Cooper was close a couple of times. So I'll probably lean to a Cooper and Jameson there. Both of these running backs from Detroit, it wouldn't surprise me if one of them went for like 20, 25, but I'll probably be under off of both of those guys. And it just comes down to, is it the James Cook game? We saw a couple of times this year, James Cooks went for 31 that one game against Seattle, 22, and then 28 in another game. So if he goes off, I will probably not be there, but I'm with you there. Kind of just Josh Allen mainly. I think Josh Allen is a great spend on FanDuel as well with Elijah Moore over there, very cheap. So I think Josh Allen is a guy must try and fit in over there just based on how their scoring works as well. Any final thoughts from you in this game, or you want to head to the plays of the day?
No, that's pretty much it. We can head to the plays of the day. Let me go figure that out.
You want me to go first? I got a guy that I'll probably go to.
Yeah, go ahead. I got to do the filtering. Otherwise, I have no idea.
I'm going to go into that Dolphins game that I like. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle as my play of the day. Looks like he's going to be under 10% in multiple places that I've looked ownership-wise. He's been close. He was 1 yard away from the 100-yard bonus last week and then was 8 for 144 and a touchdown against the Patriots a couple of weeks ago. So 20 and 31 in 2 of the last 3 weeks. I think Waddle goes for 25-plus again in this matchup inside a dome. So I look for Jalen Waddle to have a big game at under 10% owned, I think.
All right. How do we measure the best play of the day? Because I'm going to take a play of the day from the same game. He's just a different price, and that's Tyreek Hill.
I like it.
I mean, why not take the fastest wide receiver?
Yeah.
He's probably not the best wide receiver, but he can be on any given slate.
Absolutely.
Scored 31 points last week, 14 targets, had 9 targets the week before. Tua's back, slinging it to him. So all the same things you said before. A fantastic game script. I just think if you're going to, he's still low owned. If you're going to spend up or you're going to try to find the upside, Tyreek Hill has that upside. So again, I don't know how we would compare play of the days, but this would be the opportunity from the same game, 2 different price points. Is it value? Is it upside? Or just raw points? But hopefully Tyreek Hill is my guy.
Hopefully we're arm in arm as we're heading into the winner's circle when Tua goes for 35 and both those receivers go for 30.
Would like that, yeah. And Cincinnati going for 100.
Yeah. There we
That
go.
would be good.
But I think that'll do us for tonight. Any final thoughts for you here, Drew, as we close this thing out?
No, I don't think so. It's some fun tournaments on FanDuel we talked about with the fan championship or whatever they call it. Yeah. And then obviously whoever's playing in the live final, best of luck. There's that's always fun to sweat. At least it's honestly that's such big prizes. So you can imagine the swings with TDs late in the game or late in the afternoon in those late games. So yeah, that's it. It'll be fun to sweat my own lineups. If they suck, I can sweat best ball lineups. If they suck, I'll sweat someone else's live final lineup. So there we go.
For sure. Well, that'll do us for tonight. If you are in the live final, good luck to you if you're in there from the Run Pure Sports streets. But that'll do us for us tonight. We appreciate you guys for watching. As always, hit the like, subscribe on your way out if you haven't yet. But for Drew, I'm Snyder. We're out of here.